offered to you today, that you were explaining that every garland has a meaning, and because of the colors and the type of flower is used, and life becomes so much more pleasurable just by being in contact with persons who are very artistic. Just by this simple fact, and then to understand that Kṛṣṇa is expert in all arts, and that he can paint a dolphin in a second in anyone's body. It's like, wow, you know, this artistic expression that he has, that he dresses perfectly, he plays music beautifully. I mean, everything is so artistic. It's very hard to imagine for someone who has no contact with a person like that. It's always a big jump, you know, from Western conditioning, material life, and like that, to beautiful artistic devotional life. It's like, how do I get there, you know? A big jump.
Do you think that it would seem unreal to most people?
Yeah.
That anybody could do, or that everybody could do these artistic things?
Yes, it's why? Because everything it's a whole mechanism of control. Because the demons, for example, any knowledge in regards to singing is very hidden, and it's very expensive to take any course with any professional singer.
That's true.
And they do that so that nobody learns how to sing nicely, so that you have to see the artist in the TV, the opera singer in Italy or whatever. And what this does is it creates the idea that I can never do that. It's like these guys, they're doing some kind of magic
that's the key. Yeah.
That I cannot do. So because of this, it creates it's a machine, you know. They control the artist very carefully, so that whatever the artist sings or does, that's the role model for millions of people who have no education in arts.
And what are they showing now? Criminals. Criminals have become the role model for millions and millions of the world's youth, because those are the kind of artists they're promoting on this nonsense.
Yeah, like, I don't know, Britney Spears, Michael Jackson, what kind of role models are that?
Well, I was looking at some of his videos on YouTube, and it's like every single one he played the role of a criminal. Smooth criminal. Yeah, smooth, what is that? Smooth operator.
Oh, well, that's another.
Oh, that's another one. Well, anyway.
Criminal was Michael Jackson.
But he would dance. He would play the role of the you know, like the smooth city criminal, the sophisticated criminal. That was his role. That's the role he played, and he played that role in real life as well.
He also wore Nazi uniforms on stage.
He did?
Black suits with these sort of red bands around his arms, kind of giving this sort of strange.
Use the microphone.
Oh, sorry. Even on stage, Michael Jackson wore these kind of Gestapo uniforms, all black with this military chest plating and maybe a red band on his arm. Just kicked back into Nazi uniforms. Like, what's he trying to do there?
Well, so the point is that the powers that be, they discouraged people from learning these arts. Well, in two ways. In one way, they try to make it impossible for people to learn these arts. They're very difficult. And in another way, they control the content by the artists that they promote. I mean, there are plenty of good artists that have nice, positive messages, but those guys don't get the recording contracts. These rascal rappers and gangsta musicians, you know, and like this, they're getting all the airplay. Well, we know that somebody doesn't get airplay unless they're promoted. So that means they must be promoting those guys in order to send out a message to young people all over the world that this is desirable somehow. And they're getting that message. You see everywhere you go, you know, people are doing this nonsense rap music and this, you know, these gang stuff and or whatever.
Yeah, in any single art that's available in the West, the focus is not only to make it very dull and ignorant, but that always the focus is on something dark.
Yes.
And like Peter, you pointed that feature that all your art school was about painting gray stuff or always something
remember, we
like
went
very
in that art
dull.
school in Santiago, in that artist place, and all the paintings were like really dark.
Oh, yes.
You know, like old masters or something. You know, like just very depressing.
It's cool to be depressed these days. It's cool to be depressed these days.
Yeah, please comment.
Yeah, well, just my own experience growing up, you know, through school, especially where I grew up in the South, art was like a taboo subject. So if you were good at art, I also never knew anyone that was singing. But even if there was someone good at singing, it was like taboo, like you were like the weirdo. And like I grew up, I had teacher tell me art is a waste of time. Yeah, and I mean, it was bad, and it was really traumatic because this is what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, what can I say?
Well, I had the good fortune to grow up, I mean, literally within sight of Manhattan. I would look out the window of my bedroom and I could see the Empire State Building. And, you know, artists, I mean, that's like, at that time anyway, was the arts capital of the Western world, practically. All the top art schools, music schools, everything was right there in Manhattan. And I mean, I would do crazy things like, you know, cut school and take the bus and go into New York and have lunch at the Playboy Club and then go downtown and jam with Coltrane's band. You know, I used to do crazy stuff like that. And I met all of the really, really top jazz musicians and took lessons from Eric Dolphy and how to play horns. And, you know, I mean, I just got the best exposure. Of course, you know, I was enough of a rascal that I just went for what I wanted. I didn't care what people thought. If I cared what people thought, I wouldn't be here now doing this. Because all my godbrothers told me that I was a complete failure as a devotee and that my devotional service was no good, and they tried to stop me from getting initiated by Srila Prabhupada. I mean, so many things. They did everything they could to discourage me, you know. But I was already trained up because I grew up in an Italian football town and I was a flute player. So, I mean, if I could get through that, you know, I could get through anything. And that was the point. I mean, Kṛṣṇa arranged that to, I think, to show me how to be determined and how to go against popular opinion. Because you can count on the popular opinion is always wrong. You can count on it. There's a science of stock trading called contrarianism. And basically that when the enthusiasm for buying is at its peak, that's just before things are going to turn down the other way. And then the converse, when the selling sentiment is very strong and lack of confidence is at its peak, well, then you know you have a bottom, a real bottom. Of course, there are many different ways of analyzing these things. But basically, the point is that the mass of people is completely ignorant of what is real life. See, why is art valuable? Why is art important? Things like, you know, this is called a Vaijayanti garland, the red and white carnations alternating like that. Why is it that art is so important? Because it adds meaning to life. And meaning adds value to life. See? How do you increase the value of life? How do you increase the, you know, how enjoyable and how profound and how wonderful your life is? Well, you add value by adding meaning. See? Just like when someone is very important to us, we say, "You mean a lot to me," right? There's a lot of meaning in that relationship. So similarly, if everything has meaning, then it becomes more valuable. Try to understand. Huh? Most of us take 90% of our experience and we just throw it in the garbage can of our mind because it has no meaning, has no significance. Because we tend, in material consciousness, we tend to evaluate the meaning of everything in terms of our desires. And if our desires are simply for paltry material things created by human beings, then all of the real wonders of life, including life and consciousness themselves, we're not going to appreciate. See, we're not going to appreciate the beautiful design on the leaves of the trees and how the same fractal angle is repeated throughout the whole tree, and how all the leaves are like cast from one mold, and yet